Dum de dum dum dum. Gonna stream it. Gonna do it. I'm actually kind of curious that, like, I know on Twitch my phone's like, oh, somebody you follow is going live, which may send somebody over here. But I don't know if YouTube does that. Do they for live stuff? Very unclear to me. I suppose if you hit, that's why people say smash that like button and the bell. I wonder if the bell is relevant there. Oh, one person popped in, so let's go. I always feel weird starting to talk when it says 0 people are watching. You're like, what is that? How is that useful? My plan is this particular CSS property because it came up the other day in an interesting way, I thought. It came up because I was at this thing called CSS Cafe. I was in Amsterdam, and these two cool fellas operate CSS Cafe, and it's usually online, but in this case it was in person because CSS Conf or CSS Day was there, and they ran it the day after, and there was two really cool talks. One of the talks was Johannes Odland here and a coworker. They worked at like the Norwegian BBC or something, NRK. And they talked about lots of things. I think it was in their talk. It could have been in Julia's talk too, but I forget. So I feel weird about it. And I couldn't find any evidence in either talk, but this particular property came up. And then I saw Josh Komau's post on it. And it just made me feel like I should just understand this more. I'm going to like it. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Josh. Ooh, does that sound come across the stream? I'm not even sure. No? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Couldn't tell you. I don't know if I have that setting turned on, but it's a lovely sound. Okay. So Josh is saying, like, look, you can have a keyframe that goes from opacity 1 to opacity of 0 and it fades out. So let's call it fade out. But check it out. And I use this trick all the time. I feel like it's even more common than normal is to not specify the from keyword and just the to keywords. So it's saying, like, what if the thing is already opacity 0.75 or something like that, and you still want it to fade out or fade to transparent. I don't know why I changed the name here, but it would be weird if it forced it back to opacity 1 and then put it back down to 0. So like you just don't even need the from keyword a lot of times with animations like that. But also, while we're making such a simple keyframe animation, maybe like that belongs in code bases generally. Like maybe that's a cool idea, is just to have a bunch of very simple keyframes like that you could then kind of compose together. I actually am not sure if that's exactly Josh's point. Let's find out here. But dynamic composable keyframe animation. So yeah, composable is maybe the ticket there. So okay, we're gonna fade out from 1 to 0. Cool. And then 1 to 0. But he's explaining that a partial keyframe, yeah, could start anywhere and still gets down to 0. God, that is a nice way of explaining it. Good job, Josh. Cool. And here's like yeah, they all end at the same place, but they had different starting places. Fine. Also, is this basically the same thing? It works in reverse. So if that's not his point, it could have been his point. Cool. And then animating to a dynamic value. Okay. All right. This is a good one because this next bit really blew my mind when it discovers it. When Josh discovered it. So that's cool. We can animate to a value specified by another keyframe animation. Yeah, I guess that blows my mind a little bit too. I was thinking he was going to say you could animate to the value of a custom property. Even that is kind of interesting. But this is interesting too. So, okay, there's twinkle that goes from 2.5 to 0.75. That's fine. So it's not full on either way. And I see it's being alternated. So it can go back and forth and back and forth. But fade from transparent is fighting it, going from 0. Yeah, that's awfully weird. I guess that fighting is what makes it quite twinkly, I guess. All right. So when you're twinkling, it's just back and forth. Fade from transparent does that. So when you're, ooh, that's pretty interesting. It's like you smashed these two lines together to get this line, hence the really, wacky stuff. Yeah, that is pretty wild. Cool. But the syntax is the composable part that's interesting to me. So we had fade from transparent, but you could have move in from the left or move down from the top or animate from height 0 to height auto, that kind of thing. And then the composable part is interesting to me, is like rather than having one keyframe that does all those things, you just call comma separated animations on this different attributes that you want and use them. That seems interesting to me. But then it's like, how do they fight each other? I mean, this graph was kind of showing how they did fight with each other. I lost it, but whatever. Yeah, this is showing I don't know if fighting is the right word for it, but combining. And then like, does animation composition affect that? It almost certainly does, right? So we'll read the docs on that and figure it out. Okay, so here's one keyframe being added. Where does Josh go with this? Whimsical animations, bonus. Okay, so he's going to bring in custom properties, I think, here. So one custom property is just translate it from a negative value to the same positive value, call it oscillate, great. But the amount that you oscillate doesn't have to just be 16 pixels. It could be a custom property. That custom property is set here in inline style, so the bottom one is going to oscillate more than the bottom one. Yeah, that is a great technique just on its own. So I guess if he's talking about composable, that's a composable aspect as well. Pretty neat. But there's only one where he combines two different animations, and that I think is more like what is going on with animation composition. So here's the docs for that. And we haven't made any animations of our own yet, but we will. This property just has 3 values: replace, add, or accumulate. I assume one of them's the default, probably replace, and then it has the typical keywords that go with it. So let's just read them quick. When you replace with animation composition, the effect value overrides the underlying value of the property. This is default. Yeah, okay, that is default. So then we have 2 more options that we need to attempt to figure out what they do. The effect value builds on the underlying value of the property, produces an additive effect, and accumulate. That seems like the same word as add to me, but okay. The effect and underlying values are combined. So combined is different than added, I guess. I think that will be clear somehow. Okay, so they have an animation called Pulse. Pulse blurs, but it already has blur on it. That's probably what is going on here. So if we add, then what happens? With replace, the blur just gets wiped out here, and it becomes 10 pixels at the first frame. That makes sense. With add, the composite effect in the first keyframe will be both of these combined. I didn't even know you could do that. Can you add 2 blurs like that without them replacing each other? I guess that's the first thing we should explore. And then accumulate adds the values, so that makes sense. So they are different concepts. Let's do a pen.new quick and just put like an H1 that says hello world. We'll do a my center thing. I should be using the new editor, right? Ooh, I'm not under my own account. I was doing some test work earlier with a pro account that wasn't my own. Oops, I never used the Google login. Is it even gonna work? No. It's logged into my other secret account or something. My GitHub will take me to my right account, I think. How's everybody doing? Y'all actually out there? Hello world. My center. You know what? While we're starting from scratch, I am going to use the new editor. That's kind of the point of doing this streaming anyway, in some way. This is the 2.0 editor. It already has Hello World on it. Ain't that convenient? What we're trying to do is figure out that blur thing real quick. So like, I was curious that you could add 2 blurs to the same element, and I just was like, without it replacing each other, is that how it works? I just don't know, actually. So H1 filter blur, what was it, 5 pixels? So that's definitely going to blur this, right? Yeah, it super blurs it. But the idea was that you could blur it like again. So blur 5 pixels. Yeah, but like, how do I know what the value is there? Is it is it a valid value to have two blurs like that? And is it literally the same as blur 6 pixels or not? So I guess we need another H1. We'll call this like test one, and I'll duplicate it. Option command down. Yeah, shift option down. I gotta get used to that. I used to always go command shift D, and that doesn't work in the new editor on purpose. I'm trying to make that match a more realistic VS Code thing and whatever. Or it'll command shift D will come back when the Sublime bindings come back. All right, so this is test one, and test two. I don't even know if this is going to be noticeable. Filter blur of 6 pixels, I guess. The idea is like, are those the same, or is it literally look actually different? I mean, I can't tell. Maybe it needs to be more chill or something. Like, is 1 pixel the same as 2 pixels? Even then. Oh, okay, so that's markedly different. And then I guess I want a third test where it is just 1 pixel of blurring. So test 3, test is filter blur 1 pixel. Like, is that first one? Okay. So this is blurring at 1 pixel, which is a little bit blurry. Oh, my face is over it. Can I move it temporarily? Does that work on the stream? This is a little bit blurry. This one is the second most blurry, but it is different, and blur 2 pixels is the most blurry. That's wild. So blur 1 pixel is like a little bit like blur 1.5 pixels, I guess. That's weird. That's strange to me. Okay, I don't know what to think about that. But it does matter. Clearly it matters. If I do this, then they'll just line up at the top. Boop. Fine. Okay, well, sure as hell didn't know that either, Mr. Kick 808. But we're more interested in how this is going to apply with animation composition. That was the kind of the stated goal for today. So I did make I was starting to play with it. Oh, I should refresh this so it's me. Because I was interested in like the idea of composable ones. Maybe we should start from scratch here and then use this as kind of a reference pen situation. Let's do this comparing blurs and just leave that alone, and then make a new codepen.io/editor/pen, make a brand new one where we mess with animation stuff. And all we're going to do is give ourselves a div to work with. Div. We need no JavaScript today. I will delete you away. Fine. And then we just need a div. And our div is, say, 100 pixels wide. It has background red like all good divs do. We need to make it a square. And then we should be able to see it. Yeah? Okay. And now we're going to write keyframes against it. So let's say we wanted it to just go up and down. So that was my idea with Bob, like bobbing up and down. And we could say, do we need a from and to? I mean, we were just reading about how we maybe don't need that. So to translate, that's going to be a lot, but let's look at it for now. Animation then of Bob over 1 second, and then whatever, there's some easing on it. We'll see how that looks. I want it to go up and down instead, just because that's what's in my mind. So I'm going to make it do it. And it snaps back, so I could go alternate to have it not do that. Alternate. Do I have to go infinite to infinite? Isn't infinite implied or not? Apparently not. Okay, we're bobbing now. But that's one animation, and we'll make it less ridiculous. It's bobbing up and down, and it looks perfectly pleasant if you ask me. What if we wanted it to go side to side? cool. And that's this idea of like maybe we build our own little library of these things. So Bob and move, Bob and weave. Isn't that like a boxing thing or something? So and maybe we want it more like to be, I feel like I want it to go negative, don't I? Like negative 16 to 16 like Josh has, so its center is normal. How do you do that without making it jumpy at the beginning? Maybe we just make both. There's just no problem with that, I believe. So again, we'll go translate. And this is already interesting to me because like, does this if we can apply this both, which translates are like going to quote unquote win? I have no idea. So this one is, I'm explicitly saying 0 here because I don't think there is a translate X or translate inline or anything like that. I don't think there is. So this is 20. And now if we weave, we add another keyframe to this, what even happens? Weave over 1 second ease infinite. Do we need to do alternate on this one? Okay, so it's going up. And that's it. Like they are overriding each other entirely. Like only Bob is happening and not weave. I guess that's a little bit like background image. In background image is like the quote unquote top one when you're looking at them like this kind of is the layer that's on top is Bob just winning? That's interesting that right when it loads, it does a left to right. And then it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's because I guess maybe because of this, maybe I do need that ease. Or maybe that is like the implied number of animation iterations is like 1 or something. So no, that's still, but now weave is winning and not Bob is winning. So that's fun. Maybe we just already need this. If we want these to behave, I want it to be bobbing and weaving, then maybe you just need animation composition. So let's try add first. We already know what replace does because that's the default. Which one am I here? So animation composition. We have one opportunity, right? It's not like you have to comma separate them. All right, that is actually what I expect to see, I think. Because it's doing this translate and it's doing this translate. It's combining them together. One's going up and down and one's going left and right. That like kind of seems correct to me. Cool, and we could do it. Well, let's just test the difference because I guess that's kind of the point. Is that we look at this other one. I'm stealing it from my other pen, which we will come and look at. But accumulate is the other one. So if I just override it, these got to come back. Burp, burp. So is accumulate different than add? It almost looks like it's moving farther, doesn't it? Let's take out accumulate. I guess we could give ourselves a little control. I'm not sure they are different, nor would we necessarily expect them to be different. Maybe if we were moving in the same direction, we would expect it. Like if we do neither thing, but just temporarily here, we go, I don't know, 0, another 20 pixels. Like it's the same thing. Actually, let's just do a keyword and we'll just do the same 20 pixels. Then I guess we would expect it to move 40 pixels, right? So if it's replaced, it's just moving the 20 pixels. Does that look about 20 pixels? Yeah. But if we add it, then what do we expect? Not sure. Yeah, it's more like 40 pixels. And then if we override that with accumulated, is it different or is it still just 40 pixels? It appears to just be 40 pixels. So it's probably not every property. It's like it knew how to do something different with filter because of the nature of filter or something. But in this case, add and accumulate are the same. It's just like nothing different to do. You can't add two translates to the same object, or they just by nature have to be combined or something. I don't know. Interesting though. Let's get ourselves back to where we were with the negative values and all that. And now we're adding, and now we're going like this. And then I wanted the third one. So let's just not abort forever on this one, but look at this other one that I was playing with earlier. Again, we just have a div, background color of red, and it has bob and sway and nod. So what are those keyframes? One of them is bob is the one that goes up and down. Sway is the one that goes left and right. I guess that's a better word than weave. And then nod adds a rotation. So these are three, and they're all transform properties, I guess, but they're individualized. Like it does matter that these are both translates. This is still a transform, but I think CSS like treats it differently now that it's got its own actual property. So we know what accumulate is doing. So if we get rid of accumulate, well, we know it's currently replace, right? So if I comment this one out, it becomes add. Yeah. Okay. So if we're adding, it means we're both going left and right and up and down. So it's just doing both of these two things, which is almost kind of not what we wanted. The replace was almost more interesting. So because it's replace and it was doing this little happy left and right jaunt, which I actually kind of preferred that behavior. Not that there's any like implied design goal here, but it's just kind of neat. It's because the value is replaced right now, it's kind of like bob isn't even there. All right, if we just took bob away, I think the behavior will be exactly the same. Is it though? It seemed jauntier with bob there. So bob is there, but animation composition is replaced. It's like these aren't even here, right? Just to be sure, it's not doing anything weird with these properties, right? That's the behavior. But it's replacing, so it seems like this one would just entirely replace whatever bob is doing. But it's not actually behaving like that. Somebody explain that to me. Let's reread what it says about replace. The effect value overrides the underlying value of the property. This is the default value. So I don't know. That's not particularly helpful to me. So let's kick open DevTools and perhaps look at the animation thingy. What is it? Option back thingy. So is it this? Oh, that's some part of the UI. Let's kill all these. And then can I just reload that and will it track? I didn't want to reload the whole UI. I just want to see, yeah, this. And it's just going to run forever. So I'll hit pause. And then can I scrub it? Yes. Okay, so here's Bob. Bob at the moment is translate 0 and then just in the like inline direction. That's what's happening with old Bob. And then sway. Can I click onto sway? I don't understand what I'm clicking necessarily. Make this bigger. I do want to see these. Okay, it's combined there. How was I looking at just Bob before? Wow, what am I doing there? Just dragging around the keyframes? That doesn't seem like it should let me do that. Oh, it's getting all kinds of wacky. Look at that. Whoa. Okay, why can't I just reload this iframe? Because you just can't, I guess. So there it goes forever. Wasn't I able to stop it before? Yeah, okay. That's the animation that we're trying to look at. And if I feel like if I click this, it was giving me Bob animation. And then I can scroll it and it's just doing Bob. And these other ones disappeared for some reason. Why'd they disappear? but it is clearly combining them, right? Which is weird to me because the animation composition here is replace. Oh my gosh. There's just Bob. There's just Sway. Now Sway becomes the one where it's combining them, even though Sway's like the middle one. I always get into this situation where I actually try to understand what CSS is doing, and I'm like, hell if I know. So there's the 3 animations. They all have the same one except for nod, which alternates for some reason. But it is clearly animation composition replace. But maybe it's smart enough just with the translate property that it knows that because, I'm not really changing anything with the first translate value, that it's like, okay, that it knows all I'm changing is essentially translate Y. And so this one is only affecting translate X. So it's like, it kind of like quote unquote combines them anyway because it knows I'm only touching one of the directions. That seems weird to me. It feels like this one should replace this one entirely, but it does not. It does not do that, clearly. I'm going to reload one more time because I don't understand what's happening in this animations panel. Like I can click here. I'm not even sure what this button does exactly. It just starts that animation again. Okay, and it's only got Bob and Sway, even though we clearly have 3. Where's Nod? Why isn't Nod invited to the panel this time? Couldn't tell you. And if I delete that animation, it's not even there at all. How do you like replay it? That? Oh my gosh, now it's only doing one of the 2. It feels buggy to me. Like, am I that stupid that I don't understand how this panel operates? There it is. Pause. Oh, it's got all 3 of them now. Can I scrub through it? Yes. And if I click onto Nod, what is it? What is the implied behavior when I click onto this timeline? It's, I don't know, giving me styles about its rotation. That is kind of nice that it's doing that. I don't quite understand it, I guess. And I don't understand why Sway, all of a sudden the timeline came all the way down to nothing. Like why is clicking Nod do that? I don't know. I'm just on a tangent because I just don't. I want to like find this panel useful, and it is to some degree, but not like all the way. So I just don't. Maybe it's just because it's isolating that particular one. If I click it again, I'm now like unable to click anything else. It feels like this needs like a UI situation. These other animations are just like part of the CodePen. Look at how that's a bug. Speaking of the CodePen UI, look at that one button is super small at this particular breakpoint. Good job. Yeah, these can go away. It's just this animation. Anyway, it's just a tangent anyway, but like this is inscrutable what's happening in this animation panel. But anyway, replace is it's still kind of all 3 of these animations are doing what it needs to do there. But if we hit add, it's going to go more like from top left to bottom right and include the nod, which feels a little, that does add up. It's like it feels more additive in this case, but this one definitely doesn't get replaced, even in the replace situation, or at least how I think of it. And then accumulate probably won't be any different than add. So if we uncomment add, it'll be the same as accumulate in this case, because there is nothing relevant in a way. It's not like filter where there can have multiple values. Yeah, interesting enough. Interesting enough. Does the docs have their own interesting examples? It starts with the blur one, but I wonder if they have any other ones in here. Examples. Understanding the animation composition values. Nice section. Should have kept scrolling. So they have some 3 containers, and each of them has their own ID on it for targeting. So there's a slide animation that at the 20 and 40% keyframes, it moves over 100 pixels and turns the background to yellow, and that at 80% and 100%. I wonder what's the distinction there. That's kind of an interesting way to set that up. I guess it means it doesn't move from 20 to 40 and from 80 to 100. It just stays at 150. So it'll move to 100 and then, or it'll, what happens at 20? It'll move up to 100 pixels till it hits 20 and then do nothing until the 40% keyframe. And then between 40 and 80, it'll move another 50 pixels while changing to orange. And then after 80, it'll just stay that way. Ugh, weird. Wow, and they're very different. How interesting. So again, we have a target, which is already translated and rotated to some degree. And then we apply that animation, and then we hover over it, it pauses, I guess, for us to check it out. It doesn't seem like it's pausing very good. That doesn't seem to be working for whatever reason. But then there's replace, add, and accumulate. Fine. So why is replace interesting here? Replace should be, it feels like this thing should be rotated, but it's totally not rotated because the transform property has these transforms have taken over and have totally destroyed these original two values. That's the default behavior. That's what in my mind I would expect to happen for whatever reason. So is there any rotation at all in replace? No, it does start as rotated at 45 degrees. Clearly it comes in, and then once it, yeah, so from 0 to 20%, it's moving over 100 pixels, but it was happy to start at rotate 45 degrees. I guess that makes sense, right? It's like if there was a 0% keyframe, we wouldn't see any rotation at all. But because there isn't a 0% keyframe in here, we don't see this replace start out straight up and down. We see it start out at a 45 degree angle because that's its default value. And it also starts about 30 pixels inward because it's happy to start right there at the 0% keyframe. Then it moves along, turns to yellow, stops for a minute, and then moves on. So I guess that makes sense. Makes sense. That's the default behavior. So we need to understand what's different about add then. So what's the first keyframe add? It looks like it starts at about the same place that replace did. So it starts at translate 30, rotate 45 degrees, and it starts out as yellow or whatever, its default color. And then what's happening to it? It changes, it turns to green really quickly. Is green the first keyframe? Yeah, it's green immediately. Why is it green immediately? We don't know why it's green immediately. That's not implied. So it must just, it must just be on here. And then it's moving to the right and down while changing to yellow, and then slowly has a little bit more to move while it stays yellow. Does it never go to orange? It just never goes to orange. What's up, Andrew? Yeah, we're animating Mike and Ike's, and we're trying to understand the difference between animation, composition, replace, which is somehow not that hard to understand because it's just, that's the default and that's how it normally works. But there's add and accumulate, and we're trying to just figure out, it is actually a little bit clear what the difference is. It really seems to depend what properties you apply them to make it matter or not. So we know that the initial state of Mike and Ike in the middle is 45 degrees and it never changes. It never changes. And we're just dealing with transform, not the individual properties of transform, like rotate can be a property and translate can be a property, but not in this case. So in the case of add, it's just staying how it already is and adding an additional 100 pixels to it. But what add does is it like picks this 100 pixels up and it adds it as a third item on this list is a way to think about it. Which in the world of moving pixels around pretty much does just add the two numbers. But in the case of blur, do we still have that blur one open? This was an interesting revelation to me on this stream, is that this first one is blur 1 pixel, which is like the medium amount of blur to this. Blur 2 pixels is the most blurred, but blurring 1 pixel is like the least amount of blur. Like, so blur 1 pixel is kind of like blur 1.5 pixels, like blurs, and then it blurs a little bit more, but 1 pixel still isn't very much. It's just kind of weird to me. But when if both of these were translate, in fact, we could do that, right? Translate X. Oh, we're barely going to be able to see anything, right? So let's make these 1 pixel values like 20 pixels, but this one should be 40 pixels. Oh, it can't be filter though. It needs to be transform. Yeah, the first two are the same because translate X 20 pixels, translate X 20 pixels is literally the same as translate X 40 pixels. But if you only do it once, it only does it once. But blur does not behave that way. And it's totally valid to have multiple on here. In fact, we could probably just keep going. Ooh. Is that going to finally be more blurry then than 2 pixels? Like almost. I think it is maybe just slightly more blurry, but you have to apply a lot of blur 1 pixels on there. That is fascinating. But that's what I mean by it depends on what property you're dealing with, because clearly it doesn't always behave the same, I guess. All right, so I don't think we're gonna be able to see, in this simple example, I don't think we're gonna be able to see the difference between add and accumulate. Hence, we're over on the NPM or the MDN docs, seeing how they deal with it. But okay, we know it starts as green because watch, the first keyframe is green, and then we know that it moves to yellow but it should be yellow by the time it hits the 20% keyframe and then stay yellow to the 40% keyword. Then it never changes from yellow. It just stays yellow. How is that possible? What is animation composition add? Why would that affect its ability to change to orange? And if we're looking at accumulate too, it also never changes to orange. It's like, I'll change to yellow, but then I'm good. I will not change to orange when I move from 40 to the 80% keyframe. It's just totally inscrutable to me. But what is accumulate actually doing then? So it starts already at 30 pixels. They all start at the exact same spot, apparently. And then it's gonna, this 100 pixels will actually just turn into translate X 130 pixels. Like it actually affects the value. It really is translate X 130 pixels. It's not two of them side by side. Yeah. And then the rotation, it stays rotated because it's accumulating or whatever. And then it does move to 150 pixels, but it doesn't move downward. Why does add move downward and accumulate not? In fact, why is add moving down at all? We never change translate Y. Right? Translate Y is never applied. So why under animation composition add does this one move downwards? Isn't that just weird? This is much weirder than I thought it was going to be. And it makes me wish that we could understand how the animation panel actually works, because clearly that's an interesting thing to know. I think it's irresistible. I think we must figure out this. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Andrew. I can share it with others, perhaps. Like it's being rotated 45 degrees and then moved. And it's like if that was a car driving, then yeah, then it would, that's how translate X would work then. I mean, it makes sense conceptually a little bit, but it's like, I don't know that the web cares. I mean, it does because we're seeing it with our own two eyes, but it doesn't feel like it should care about what rotation it is once it has translate X. Those seem like different concepts, but I guess that's what's happening with add. I mean, we can't refute our own eyes. All right, so this is what's going on. We can look at this one specifically. I guess we should stop it because otherwise it'll go forever, right? So that's the element. This is different now with all the little lines and stuff on it. Why does it look different this time than the last time we looked at it? Can we click a keyframe? We can move a keyframe. Not sure what that does. Can I click this one? Why is this one filled in while this one is not filled in? If I hover over it, is there any clues about what you're trying to say? I guess it's saying that's a 40% keyframe and an 80% keyframe, probably. But where's the 20% keyframe? Why is it not there? Yeah. Don't know. Will it give me oh, it does. That's the kind of inline value of it at the moment is there's two different translate X's apply. This is this value. I want to apply it myself so I can change stuff on it. Add, which one we're on add? Can I apply that right here? Transform. Well, I screwed it up, but I'm going to make a new pen real quick where I just apply that. Well, we'll just use hello world. Heck yeah. H1, transform those things. And now it's going to move it. So if I change this one to 10 pixels, it'll come back straight to the left, right? But now if I move after the rotation, if I move forward more, does it go down to the right? If add an extra 100, does it go straight to the right? No, it goes down and to the right. You're right, Andrew. Fascinating. So this first one is going to go straight to the right. But then I rotate it and I use translate X again. It comes down at the rotated value. That is new CSS information to me. Oh, again, I'm covering it with my face, right? Fascinating. So if I went 250 pixels here, it's just going to go down that direction. Absolutely stunningly weird to me. It's cumulative. It's do this one, then do this one, then do this one, but factor in, make sure you're thinking about all the things that you've previously done. So it's not just animation and it's not just animation composition that's at play here. We're more dealing with just what stacked transforms do just by their nature. Fascinating. So this is shedding light on this now. So now if we refresh this, we'll understand this a little bit more. So in the case of replace, these are gone, essentially. They really are wiped out by what's being applied in these keyframes. That's why the rotation goes away. It is still rotated at the beginning, but that's just because there's no 0% keyframe here. So that makes sense. And then add happens. And add means that it's just going to plop these onto here, onto the end. It's adding extra crap onto the transform that's already there. It's not going to replace everything. But then accumulate is different in that because this translate X is already here, it's going to change it to, it's going to add. So it'll be 100 plus 30. It'll be like translate X 130 is on there. Now, it does bring up the idea, though. Does it leave it first, or does it, because it's messing with it, move it to the end? And I guess what's happening is it's moving it to the end in the add position because the rotate is happening first, which we just proves. Andrew's saying it leaves it at first, but I don't think it does. It has to rotate first and then move in order for it to get this diagonal animation. Doesn't the translate have to happen after the rotate for that to apply under the add situation? But accumulate doesn't do that. Accumulate leaves it first, add moves it to the end. Or it doesn't it appends it to the end, not adds it to the end. And accumulate doesn't, because accumulate just stays first. Oh, that is weird. Who did this demo? I need to see could you see the Git history of this page? If you have this page on GitHub, you totally can. It feels like Estelle Weil to me. Where's the history of this page? Because it's just such a bizarre demo. Who made the demo? Can we see? Estelle. See? I freaking knew it. It just smells like her. Oh, that's funny. So they just, yeah. I wonder if this was freshly written for GitHub or it was moved over from the old site or whatever. Excellent demo though. I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe animation is a weak point of mine or something, but I would say that if you deeply understand these three things, you are a deep CSS nerd. I am very definitely learning this about CSS for the first time. Or maybe I wrote some doc a long time ago and I had to understand it temporarily, but I definitely do not have, especially this like down and to the right situation locked and loaded in my head. That is super weird to me. It feels like it'll come up too. It's like one of those things where you learn a new word and then it like just comes up that week, like the perfect time to use it. I feel like this is gonna come up again. Like this ability to move things in a direction like that it's gonna come up. I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna come up. I'm glad I understand it though. I feel like I do actually understand it now. And thanks to Josh for pointing this thing out. I knew he had a little bit of a different concept of what he was trying to get into there, but it's kind of cool. It does make me think that probably somebody at some point has put together a library of independent keyframes that are designed to be comma separated, and thus, you're supposed to use a bunch of them at once. Like, why not? It seems like that's kind of a nice way to do it. And that's that a little bit. I think maybe tomorrow we'll mess around with quantity queries. We still have some templates to get back to and play with. I have lots of more ideas. We could make our React hook tiers list where we just drag all these into D because they all suck. Topic ideas for future streams. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I appreciate it. 10 people in here. Is that a world record for this stream? It might be. Anyway, take care. Oh, I have a little bit of a new situation back here. I got to hang my green screen and stuff. Let's see. I got a lot of work to do. Be good. Chill out.